What's up, everyone? I'm Jaren, and today we are talking about the 2021 adaptation of Dune. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this movie I've been putting off quite some time to actually watch. I actually had no interest in seeing this movie, and it wasn't only because the director shit-talked Marvel. It was because I was not familiar with the original source material. Yes, I haven't read the novel. I have not seen the original 1984 movie directed by David Lynch. I have not seen the TV show that aired back in 2000 with William Hurt. Yeah, I know nothing of Dune. Just whatever the trailer showed me, that's all I know. And I felt like if I wasn't invested before, like per se Star Wars, for example, that's something that I sort of kind of grew up on, then I probably wouldn't be understanding of the source material itself. My first impression being that the content was going to be so thick, so rich, that I was going to feel alienated as a first-time audience member. And then I finally watched it, and it wasn't bad. It was actually kind of good. This movie is directed by Denis Villeneuve, who is responsible for Enemy, Prisoners, Arrival, Blade Runner 2049, and Sicario. This movie also assembles the biggest names in Hollywood today, including Timothée Chalamet, Rebecca Ferguson, Oscar Isaac, Josh Brolin, Jason Momoa, Stellan Skarsgård, Dave Bautista, Zendaya, and Javier Bardem. The story follows the son of a noble family named Paul, who is entrusted with the protection of the most valuable asset and the most vital element of the galaxy. Now, on a technical standpoint, this movie was remarkably and masterfully executed. Every image put on display was just so breathtaking. The art department went completely all out. I love the meticulous details that go into designing a lot of our characters' costumes, to like the CGI landscapes of the desert or even the city that they're in. And then there are exterior and interior shots that are very well put on display, especially with all the cinematography work, with the way that they edited the film. And you can really see a lot of lore and story really get pushed out with just a shot of something, without even characters talking about it. Especially like something historical or something emotional, or as very authentic. And especially to see where a lot of these characters are already set with what they are, where they come from. It establishes a world that exists without completely alienating its audience. It really invites you. It doesn't try to dumb things down to where, oh, this is how these things kind of started. These things exist already, and we are getting invited into the experience. Like, for example, they talk about something called The Voice, and they don't necessarily explain it to us as an audience member, but we get to see the voice get put on display with our main character, Paul, played by Timothée Chalamet, and how he's trying to use this voice that he's been practicing in order to manipulate someone's actions. As well as the shield. I thought that was a really cool piece of CGI that they used, where they would go hand-to-hand combat, whether they would be using it for protection or for combat practice, but they would use it to fight, and it was really cool, especially with that small scene between Brolin and Chalamet, where they're just, doing a little sword play, knife play, however you put it. And this also includes the way they shot the sandworms, and they do it in a way where it's just so brilliantly angled and brilliantly shot that there is so much suspense, whether we're seeing the sandworms attack in a much more aerial view, or when we're down on the sand on the ground with the characters and they're running for their lives from this big thing that we barely get to see until it gets that close. And it's those kind of details that are very inviting for a lot of newcomers like myself who don't know shit about Dune. And there's a way that this movie translates to a lot of mainstream audiences. And, Denis Villeneuve is very well known to direct some pretty insane and thought-provoking stuff, but this movie translated very well. So a lot of people that have seen this movie before me, the way they talked about it, they said it was going to be really boring because most of this is just character development and a lot of setup. So I kind of went into this movie not expecting too much because the trailers felt like they showcased a lot of key action scenes, and it does. Little did I know that they were setting themselves up for a part two because there's just so much book to cover. And that's kind of where I feel like the movie sort of fails for me. Not to disregard all the great things I said about it. This is my one big gripe, is that the movie just feels incomplete. First off, a lot of this predicament is happening because of spice. Yes, spice that is in the sand that is sifted through from the desert of Arrakis. And not only is it a very important element that everyone is fighting for or trying to sell, but apparently it's heightening the visions of Timothée Chalamet's character, and it's just, I don't know, very hallucinogenic? And then I checked my watch during this movie, and I was like, damn, for 2.5 hours, that's kind of all we have for a plot, is attempting to assassinate the Atreides family and some spice. And then there's the bad guys, played by Stellan Skarsgård and Dave Bautista, and they're really just standing around looking intimidating and barking some orders, and they don't have too much screen time. And speaking of weird amount of screen time, I thought that they heavily advertised Zendaya, that she was going to be one of the main characters in this movie. It turns out, not yet, because we're really only seeing seven minutes of Zendaya looking over her shoulder because she's in Paul's visions, and really she only shows up in like the last 15 minutes, and you know, she says that infamous line like, oh, it's only the beginning. Yeah, I guess she's gonna have a bigger role in the next one, but it was kind of weird that we didn't see too much of her when she was really advertised as like a second billing type character. And I want to know what happened to Josh Brolin. I mean, I know everyone had some surprising and unexpected fates in this movie, but the last time we saw Josh Brolin, he just ran into just a swarm of villains and bad guys, and he was just taking them out badassery style. But I need to know if that guy's alive or dead, because it was unclear, and I'm just getting anxiety. That poor guy, he doesn't know our main characters are still out there alive and, you know, attempting to do something that's gonna lead to the next story. It's like Game of Thrones or Walking Dead, where our main characters get separated in a life or death situation, and it'll take about maybe, 5 or 7 episodes to kind of bring our characters back together. In the meanwhile, you're just having a lot of anxiety, just wondering if they know that the other characters are alive, or if they are dead or not, making their own decisions there. When you look at this whole movie's storytelling perspective, it feels like you only really have a 2.5 version of a beginning and sort of a middle. And overall, I unexpectedly enjoyed this incomplete movie. Yeah, I can't wait for part 2. That's coming out in 2023? I heard that's when all the All Out War stuff is going. I'm not too sure. I was just very invested with the world that I was very well shown. I was also very surprised at how entertained I was in this movie, because going back and watching movies like Arrival, Sicario, and Blade Runner 2049, I could feel the runtime on those movies. Those movies really have a tendency to kind of drag, especially in the middle. But for this one, not so much. I just couldn't believe at how long this movie was for a beginning and semi-middle movie. Alright guys, that's all I got for you today. Check this movie out on demand, 4K Blu-ray, or even on Redbox. I'm Jaren Ugbanawag. Thank you guys so much for watching. Look forward to more reviews, and I will see you guys at the movies. Okay, bye.